Hey guys, this is Simon, and today I want to show you something which makes me very excited. As you might know, R17 is announced, and it's also announced that it will support the Houdini Engine. And since I'm also learning Houdini at the moment, I wanted to show you how it works, and especially how you can create a digital asset and use that in Cinema 4D. Okay, first of all, let's jump into Houdini, and I show you what we will try to build into a digital asset to use that in Houdini. So I built this setup here, which looks kind of weird right now, like a chewing gum. And basically this geo-boil setup which I built looks like this. So it's quite a node tree, but not too bad and not too big. And what it does is it takes some geometry, in that case a simple sphere, and based on some rules there's a selection. It's all vertices that are pointing upwards are selected. They get deformed, and when you press play, this takes some time because it generates a mesh in every frame, but you see that it starts to cook and bubbles start to build up. They grow and then they disappear, and the top part, which is boiling, is also deformed and all that stuff. And the beautiful thing about that is that, let me stop this, that these bubbles are actually double walled, which means if I go in here and we see the clipping, you see they have like two walls, so the bubbles are really hollow, which looks super cool when you make a nice transparent or a subsurface scattering shader, because then you see that there's only a thin film of material above these bubbles, and they are really hollow and not solid. So it's not just a simple deformation. And thanks to Houdini Engine, it's possible to use this tool in Cinema 4D and actually make a slot where you can drop in geometry in C4D, change parameters, for example, how big those bubbles are or how many there are, and it gets calculated inside Cinema 4D. And I just want to show you how that works. So let's hit rewind. As I said, this is my, my node tree which generates this. I will make it more like this. My screen space is a little bit limited by the screen recording software, but we will make this work. Okay, if I go one level back, so basically my whole setup is wrapped up in this node here. And to create a digital asset, it's not really complicated because you just hit right click, make it visible again, right click and create digital asset. So that's basically it. We call it GeoBoil here also. And then find a place to store it. geoboil.hda, which is Houdini Digital Asset, and LC for limited commercial because I have the Houdini Indie version. Accept, accept. Now it will tell me that I changed some parameters on the setup. I don't want to change that. And this window here pops up, and you see that now the text here is red, which means it's a digital asset. So it's wrapped into this one node now. And now I have this window, and if we go to parameters, I can find here in the middle section all the parameters that are available outside of this node right now. And this is actually all stuff that I don't need in C4D, so I will simply make it invisible. This one also, this and this one also, so now it's empty. So this is basically the, in C4D terms you would say this is the user data manager, where we can define what kind of sliders or input fields we want to have in our digital asset later. And now we can simply drag and drop our parameters that we want to change later in C4D in here. So I will dive into my setup, and I need a little bit more space. Let's make it like this. Okay, like this maybe. As I said, this is my node tree, and because it's all procedural, we start at the top. So this is my input geometry that we use to deform and build bubbles on top. So right now it's a sphere, and I need to replace that with a placeholder basically. And for that there's one node called Object Merge. This is used in Houdini basically to bring in geometry from other parts of your setup into this setup. And we simply delete the sphere, and connect the object merge. And if I click on this node, we will find this object slot here. So usually in Houdini I could here select some geometry from other parts of my setup and import it in this node. But if we just take this object 1 here and drag it over here, this field will be available in C4D. So let's click that and call this one input geometry. And this is the name of the field later. Okay, let's continue. What else do we need? And we'll push this one over here. I will bring it back in a second. Okay, then we have these nodes here, which create a selection for the area, which will be deformed later. And right now it works. It's based on the normal direction, so it takes all faces which point upwards with this spread angle. So if this would be 0, only the faces which point exactly upwards can be used. And with the spread angle, it's like a threshold that you can select more. You will see how that works later. But the thing is that I would like to have these controls also in my setup in C4D. So let's jump in here and let's grab direction. We also just set it to direction and spread angle. Spread angle is also a good description for that. Let's continue. What else do we need? Down here, I think. This might be useful, yeah. So down here we have a blend width and a distance. This is also to exactly define how where the deformation is. You will see that later. I will just take the blend width, drop it in here. We also leave it like that. It's that we have a soft transition between vertices which are selected and between those which are not. So we have a soft, it's like a fall off then between the deformed area and the straight area. Then we have this node which basically generates the deformation of the whole mesh. So not the bubbles, but the deformation, that it moves a little bit. And we want the frequency of the noise. We call this noise frequency. And the amplitude also. We can leave that to amplitude. So you can just specify the name of the slider in C4D in here. Let's continue. What else do we need? I forgot something. Maybe over here we have the amount of bubbles that we can generate. So we use the constant birth rate value, drop it over here. And this is basically the, let's call this bubble amount, or bubble count maybe. Bubble count is better. And in here we have another value that we want to use. This is the scale multiplier for our for the bubbles. So, bubbles scale, which is just an overall multiplier where you can define how big they can grow. Let's go back. What else do we want? I think we're almost done. Maybe the resolution of because everything is a volume which gets meshed later, so we can define here the resolution of the voxels. We'll also just import that, and I think this is pretty good. I think that's enough. So this is now our user data that we can change in C4D later. You can drop anything in here, so every single field where you can change values, you can drop in here to import stuff or to define certain specific functions. Just drop it in here and then change them. We hit apply and accept, will pop up again. And now the Houdini part is basically done. So we open up Cinema 4D. So this is Cinema 4D R17, and the interface looks familiar. Some new buttons here and there, but we have this menu entry which is called pipeline, and this is really, really nice. So you click here, Houdini Engine, and load asset. And if I go to my prepared folder, we have our GeoBoy HDA-LC. So this is our asset that we created. If I load it, you can see here's the side effects logo with GeoBoy, and if I click on that, I can see all my inputs and controls that we created in Houdini earlier. Input geometry, include children, direction, spread angle, blend width, blah blah blah, all the stuff that we already set up. Of course it's now an empty scene because we have no geometry specified. So I will do that, and just to show you that it also works with other objects, I will take a torus instead of a sphere, like this. And maybe let's subdivide that quite high, something like that. And one of the coolest things in Houdini Engine is that you don't have to convert your geometry. It just works with those parametric objects, which also means that you can change them later without pressing C or convert to polygons. I will make it invisible because our asset will generate geometry, so we don't need to see that. And I simply drop my torus in here, and you see down on the left here how it calculates, and that's basically it. And I checked the calculation times. It's almost like in Houdini, so it's very, very fast, which is awesome, because a lot of people complain about viewport speed in cinema. The thing is, the viewport itself is pretty fast. If you have one object with a lot of polygons, then it's very fast. You get in trouble if you have a scene with a lot of objects. So basically it's object handling, which makes it somehow slow. The good thing about Houdini Engine is that it returns one mesh. So if you have a setup which generates 2,500 whatever, it will create one single mesh. This mesh can change over time and move, blah blah, but it will be fast, and this is really cool, very snappy. And if we take a look at the mesh, it's now very nice quad mesh and very regular. So let's take a look at our settings. So by default, if I just hit play, you see it's something. If it initializes, it's okay, I would say. Quite high resolution right now. If we wait until something builds up, maybe for testing we can decrease the resolution a little bit, maybe by half. Let's check that. That looks better. Okay, hit play. It's something around 1 FPS right now, but you see that the top part of the torus is deformed and some bubbles are building up here, but by far not enough. So let's change that. We want 1,000 bubbles and maybe make them also a little bit bigger. And what you will also recognize is that you don't have to hit rewind, because Houdini Engine basically has Houdini running in the background just without a UI. And you can change those values, and we'll see the change in real time here. So now we have some bubbles. Maybe we will decrease the amplitude of the deformation a little bit. It's not too fancy. And let's take a closer look at those bubbles. Maybe look from this side. I will grab a camera and increase the near clipping, that we cut off the object. And then you can see that basically there's something inside of our bubbles. This part here is, you can see it very good. So the bubbles are not solid, they are really hollow. And the polygons on this inner mesh are also pointing inwards, so we get right refraction on this stuff. Okay, so let's try this. Maybe change some more settings. For example, if I want them to create the bubbles only to the polygons which point to the right side, I'll go in here, change that to 1, and sometimes you need to rewind, looks like, maybe wait longer. And now all the bubbles are only on this side, which point to the right. So rewind again, I want them at the top. And then let's see how it looks when we shade it. Maybe we make them still a little bit bigger. Let them grow. Oh yeah, that's cool. Something like this maybe. I think we still need more. 500. Now we're talking. Okay, that's good. So now we have a nice amount of bubbles there. I think resolution is fine for now. We can increase that later. And let me just switch to Octane. Oh, the layout is not perfect for the screen recording, but we will see. We will make this work. Okay, now I have this here. Right now it looks kind of boring. Let me just adjust a few things. Sorry. So first of all, I will create an HDRI environment. Maybe. Yeah, I prepared something. This is our test scene now, conference room. And now let's create a nice shader for our object. Let's see if we can make this better. Better visibility. Okay. So Octane offers this nice shading network where you can shade with nodes, which is amazing. So let's create an Octane material, drop it onto the object, and switch this one simply to specular. So, and out of the box, this looks really, really nice. And if we take a closer look, oh, that's really hard. You can see that those bubbles are really hollow, and we get this nice refraction in here. Let's see if I can take a, oh, here you can see it pretty good. So there's really a bubble inside of this bulge, which makes it look so good. And if we increase, it's pretty hard to navigate here in this small window. I hope that's okay for you. Let's get out again. And I will pause the render for a second. And I think we still need more bubbles. Maybe 800. Simulate again. And I think they, and the size is quite good. Let's just wait, or maybe increase the deformation a little bit more, that it's more, that we have more noise on the surface. So maybe 0.25. This looks cool. Hit play. Yeah, this is nice. Okay. And if we now continue to render, we see the nice big bubbles here, perfectly hollow. Something like this. This is really amazing. I love that. Okay, and now you can play around with materials, and I tried it before with a nice subsurface scattering shader, and I like that so much that I will rebuild it. Let's see if we can make that work. Open this one maybe over here. Okay. Maybe I'll try to undock it. Let's do that. I think that's better. Yeah, now you can see it pretty good. And let's create a fast subsurface scattering material. So we need scattering medium, drop that in here. And we need more space. RGB spectrum, 2 of them. So basically two color controls. Absorption, scattering. And let's say the scattering should be something greenish maybe. RGB spectrum, we will leave that to white, almost white, that it absorbs most of the color. And then simply adjust the scale of our material. And don't forget, we have to disable, oh, it's already disabled, perfect, and occlusion. And if you adjust the scale, then you get this really nice looking material where the bubbles are very transparent and the material itself is very solid. Yeah, I think that looks so cool. Maybe a little bit more, something like that. Yeah, now the bubbles are really transparent because the mesh is so thin at this point here that they look almost transparent and the rest gets greenish. You can spend quite some time here to adjust that, but I think for a quick test it's good enough. Maybe something like that. Yeah, this is cool. And you can see the Houdini Engine is super stable. I must say I tested it for quite some time now, and I don't think that I had a single crash with Houdini Engine if you don't do something totally stupid. So this is super cool. I have the Octane Live Viewer now running and change stuff on the fly. So let's change this to 1500. And I think if you change particle counts, you have to resimulate, but that's also not a problem. And it's building the mesh, and in real time, it's also updating here in the live viewer, which is simply amazing. Oh yeah. And for that kind of setup, I would say it's pretty fast. Let's try this. Take a look from the other side. So cool. I really love it. Since I started learning Houdini, I started to create a lot of disgusting looking stuff. Just because it's so much fun, sorry. Yeah, but it just works. So you can create a foam-like structure on top of this torus. And because everything is procedural, if you want to have it on something else, let me just drop that back here. You can simply change the geometry. So let's kick that one out and take, for example, a cube. Drop that in there and make the cube invisible. And here we have our cube. This is also pretty nice with the subsurface scattering. If we now hit play, it will take place here on the cube. This looks amazing. I really love it. And of course you can also build your setup in Houdini with an export function that you can cache it right out of the asset here. So basically everything that you can do in Houdini can be prepared as an asset and then used here in C4D. You can also use an asset and take the result of the asset and put that into another asset. I think Thanasis showed that on his Maxon presentations at what was it? SIGGRAPH, I think. And yeah, but what you also can do, of course, simply export from C4D and export an Alembic file. Because right now this is not very responsive. It's okay speed-wise. If you just see what happens here internally, it's really a dense mesh and a lot of stuff and calculations are happening. But if you need it faster and you finished everything, just export it as Alembic. You don't have to convert anything here. And then you can basically open this one, because I prepared that already to show you. So this is basically just a torus, and I animated the noise and the bubbles and stuff, and then you can see how it grows. There's still the other stuff in it. I just copy it in our other scene. Nope, not this one, not this one, this one. So simply copy it in here, drop the material on that, get rid of the asset, get rid of the cube, and we're done. And if let me just pause the render. If you now hit play, it's super fast. So then you can animate everything, it starts to boil and builds nice giant bubbles, and yeah, super cool. So if you're unsure if you want to get R17 or you don't know if the new features are worth the upgrade, I would say if you can use Houdini, if you know someone who can use Houdini, or if you just want to download ready-made assets from, I think Maxon will also publish some. I think this is really, really cool and expands the capabilities of Cinema 4D a lot without doing too much advertising here, but this one is really, really cool. So Houdini Engine is a nice thing. So thanks for watching. If you have questions, write it in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.